It's match day here at the Hill Dickinson Stadium on the day that Everton face Newcastle United. As you can tell, it's the run up to Christmas. The atmosphere's building quite nicely. And today's significant because the club are also installing, or they've unveiled the installation of the first talking bench here on the Fan Plaza, dedicated to Gary Speed. I thought I would just read a little from the club's website with regards to the announcement of that. The installation of a talking bench was proposed by the Everton Fans Forum, who wanted to create a meaningful and positive legacy in Gary's name. Its unveiling comes ahead of the fixture against Newcastle United, the closest home game to the 14th anniversary of Gary's tragic passing, a match between two clubs that he represented with distinction. As part of the club's commitment to the Premier League's Together Against Suicide pilot, trained Everton in the community staff will be based in the area around the bench before every home fixture. Supporters who wish to talk, seek support, or learn more about the services available will be able to approach staff confidentially and without any appointment. And a man who knows a lot about talking, about community and about the services that community can provide is my guest today, the Reverend Henry Corbett, who many will know as Chaplain to Everton FC, serving the Everton community for over 4 decades. A good friend of mine and an honour to call him a colleague at the Everton FC Heritage Society. Always a wonderful conversation with Henry and one I'm really looking forward to. So I hope you enjoy the show.
Marching down the Goodison Road.
One of Britain's greatest footballers.
Sharp, what a fantastic goal! And the Evertonians have gone berserk. Oh, yes, he's got it!
One Evertonian is worth 20 Liverpudlians.
Oh, it's great stuff by Everton.
This is football heritage.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Everton Heritage Show, brought to you by members of the official Everton FC Heritage Society. My name's Royden and today I'm honoured to be joined by the Chaplain of Everton Football Club, the Reverend Henry Corbett. So thanks very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us today, Henry.
Cheers, Lewis. Pleasure.
And I believe you're not going to the game either today, are you? So
Nope.
you really made the effort to come down on a match day, fighting through the traffic and the footfall. Dropped off by Jane, were you?
By my good wife, yep. And the traffic was terrible.
I bet it was. Kieran ran here, so, it could be worse. I just want to start off with like a little bit of housekeeping. Perhaps for those viewers, kind of like myself, who aren't so religious. Could you help us kind of understand your role in the community, or more specifically in the church, as a chaplain? What is a chaplain's role, and who are you, basically?
Okay, and I want to talk about the Reverend Ben Swift-Chambers, who is the founder of our club.
We will absolutely come on to Ben.
I'd love to talk about him, and it's a great encouragement to me that the club was founded by a minister, and here am I, many years later, as a chaplain at the club. How that came about was a guy called Phil Miller knew the physio at Everton back in the day of Howard Kendall and Belfield, and Phil was moving to Ipswich, and he rang me up and said, "Henry, I have got this informal link. Would you be interested?" And I said to my training vicar, "What do you think?" And he said, "Well, it'd be good to have something outside the parish." So I went along to Belfield. I went to see Howard Kendall, and he said, "Henry, my players have problems, but they won't always come to me. So if you start with the younger lads, they will know that you're genuine and not interested in glory stuff or tickets footballs or whatever, but you're concerned for them. And then when they're in the first team, they'll be able to say, look, this guy is a good guy." So that's how it worked, really. Back in 1985, and then I was made official chaplain in 1994 to the training ground at Belfield.
Okay.
Then there was the move to Finch Farm. Harry Ross, who some Evertonians will remember, who was vicar of St Luke's in the corner of the ground, he was made chaplain to Goodison Park.
I see. I think I sometimes get a little mixed up. I was fortunate enough to work with you last year when we did a little documentary on the history of St Luke's, the church with its own football ground, which you presented for us. And I remember doing the captions afterwards, and Of course, we had the Reverend Lynn Davidson involved in that as well, but she's chaplain to Goodison Park, and of course you're chaplain to Everton FC. And I was trying to work out what the difference is between the two. Could you tell us?
Well, I'm mainly chaplain to the training ground, so as was Belfield and is now Finch Farm. But obviously when there are things that occur, for example, there was a tragedy at Hill Dickinson when someone died, so I was involved a little bit with that, and other things that happened. So quite recently, Keith Tamlin, one of the club directors from way back and vice president, he died in September. There was a funeral for him down in London in October, and then we had a little tribute service here at Hill Dickinson just this last month. So again, I was involved in that. So in terms of my role, I see it as a bit like being a safety net. I'm not paid by the club. The club now has really good education, welfare. There's Everton in the community with the People's Place. Lots of really good work they do. But I think having someone linked to the club who is not, as I say, paid by the club, but has a bit of pastoral experience, is unshockable, confidential, unless it's a child protection issue or an adult protection issue, I think is valuable. And my role is not to do with anything on the pitch, so I reassure managers and coaches that I'm not going to do anything on the pitch. My role is off the pitch. You know, if someone has a family issue or a bereavement or just issues, questions, then I'm a useful person in that way.
You're just trying to avoid taking blame for what's on the pitch, aren't you, really, I think?
Well, there have been managers who say, Henry, you should be praying harder. And my response to that, Lewis, is that God has no favourites.
I've heard you say this before. But,
and there are all colours in heaven.
I think he's proven you right, as I'd always thought he'd favoured the Reds, but maybe on their recent form.
Yeah, you're wrong on that, Lewis.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, after all. So if we were to go back all the way to the start for yourself, I listened to an interview you did this week, or an interview that you did a few years ago, and I listened to it this week with Paul Beasley on Radio Merseyside. And I was really interested to hear that you went to college, or you went to university as an atheist. You studying classics.
Yep.
What changed?
That's good research, Lewis.
It was an enjoyable listen. You can still.
Well, it links.
BBC Sounds,
it doesn't link with football, but it links with cricket. And when we get on to Ben Chambers, he loved his cricket. I got up to university as an atheist or a humanist, thinking that science has the answers, and I want to be a reasonable human being. And then a guy called David Shepherd was speaking on Sunday night at the university, and as far as I was concerned, he'd made 100 for England against Australia in the Ashes, and I listened to it on my transistor radio. So I thought, might be some cricket stories. So I went along to hear David Shepherd. Now, he became a bishop. He became Bishop of Liverpool. He became my bishop. And I listened to him, and I thought, I will give the Christian faith one last look. And I investigated it. And as a classicist, looking at the Gospels, and I reached the stage where I reckon I needed more faith to disbelieve that Jesus was who he said he was than to believe he was who he said he was. So that was my route to a Christian faith, to my surprise, and it was the best thing I ever did, because as I've gone on, I've seen how it makes sense and can help me and help anyone.
Brilliant. I found that absolutely fascinating. One of the things that I was kind of going to slide in here early on, in terms of, for the benefit of viewers, was to ask you the question, as a chaplain, how should I address you going forward? Is it just Henry? Is it Father? Is it Chaplain? Is it Reverend?
It's normally Henry or H. One or two have called me Rev. Okay. Sometimes when they come from another club where they've called Rev. I am not often Father, though I've had it a couple of times, but most common Henry or H.
Well, Henry it is. Well, you talk about research. I am understanding that if you were to be in the armed forces, they tend to call their chaplains Chapo or Chappy. So I wasn't going to suggest it, but it seemed a little too formal.
Well, Keith Tamlin, who I'd mentioned before, he used to call me Padre.
Padre,
because he'd been in the forces.
Well, I was going to say one of the gentlemen who'd been in the forces, I believe, was your father. Was you from a Navy family?
Yep.
and you were born in Malta.
Yeah, people are wondering, what accent I've got. I was born in Malta. My mother's from Glasgow, and so as a child I moved around a lot, really, which I think is one reason. When I came to Liverpool in 1975 to help out at Shrewsbury House Youth Club, which has got a couple of Everton links. Tony Duggan, who played for Everton Women, and then went on to play for Man City and Barcelona and England, over 70 caps for England. She used to go to the Shewsy as a member and a helper. John Doolan went to the Shewsy. Tosh Farrell, who's a coach here at Everton. But so I came to the Shewsy for a year, and then I came back in 78, and I was in Everton right up until a couple of years ago. So staying in that patch.
And I believe that was also where you met your wife.
That's right. Helping out at the Shewsy. She was off to train to be a nurse.
Yeah.
I was off to train to be a vicar. And we met, got married in 79, and are still together, Lewis.
Well done. Bravo. You met on the first day there or something, was it? Did I hear that right?
Yep, I arrived at the Shewsy in Everton, and out came Jane to help me in with my bags.
There you go. She's still helping with your bags today. That takes us on to you kind of being so kind of a figure of quite an influential character in the community in Everton over 4 decades, I suppose, almost 5 decades. In the 1980s, in particular, with the kind of the community housing, alongside kind of local activists and the local churches. I mentioned again that the interview that you did with Paul Beasley, but one story that I really loved on that was you were talking about the activism that you were then a part of around the year 2000, around the tower block that you used to live in, which I believe was Milburn Heights. Yep. Could you tell us a little bit about Arcan and that story? Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I loved about being in Everton was it was a down-to-earth church in a lovely down-to-earth community, and we were involved in quite a few campaigns. So we saved some houses which were going to be demolished, and then some asylum seekers moved into 2 tower blocks where Jane and I first lived. And Christmas time we go to take them with our community newspaper, the Everton Telly, and Jesus was an asylum seeker, so that was our headline. And we met Arcan and other people in the block. And a bit later, Arcan rang me up and said, Henry, I want to do your church a favour. We want to use it to go on hunger strike, because they were getting really badly treated by the landlady in the block, who was not from the city. But so we did try and help Arcan. And he was such a lovely guy. He had very good English. And his father had said to him, Arcan, Christians can be good people, because he had a Muslim background. And again, that's one of the important things about chaplaincy, to be totally open to people of all faiths and none. And there's often a lot of common ground. So, I mean, I've read the Quran, and there's plenty of bits in the Quran that are very similar. So that when I meet with Muslim players, there's plenty of common ground. But Arcan was an absolute delight, and we went on a campaign, and the landlady in the end got disqualified because she was treating them appallingly. So it was a successful campaign with Arcan, who was from Iraq and his father had been killed by Saddam Hussein, his elder brother had been killed by Saddam Hussein. So he was so grateful to be in this country. And obviously people locally had questions, but he would come into the Shewsy, and in circle time the kids would ask him, Arcan, and he got to know them, they got to know him. So it was quite a campaign, really.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I thought that was a lovely story, and significant as well, as for us to know we have something of an activist chaplain at the club, and someone who's open to all faiths, and I think it's a really significant story to take a lot of pride in. So yeah, thank you very much for sharing that with us. I'm sure a lot of people local to Everton will remember that story as well, because it was quite a significant thing with those tower blocks around 25 years ago. So to bring things on to Everton FC, if I may, of course I'm proud to sit next to you as a co-member of the Heritage Society. But as we've mentioned, your role within the club kind of allows you a little more access to Finch Farm than most people have. So as you say, you've been at the training ground since the mid-80s. What does a typical kind of Finch Farm day look like for you, to give us an idea of what you actually get up to.
Well, as I say, it's entirely voluntary and free. I used to enjoy going on a Monday because the weekend had just happened and it was a chance, obviously, hopefully they were with family or with friends, or so it was a chance to say, how was your weekend? With Sky coming along and all the other various channels, sometimes Monday, sometimes Tuesday, because you get games on Sunday and Monday now. So I would drive up to Finch Farm, see the guys on the gate, see how they are, and then go in, see Rachel on reception, and then I would head through to maybe Tony Sage, the kit man, and then maybe through to the medical staff, because that's quite a good place for if people are laid out for a while, they might be glad and then I go up 1 week to the sort of first team and senior pros, and where they're having lunch and sit on a table or move around. And then the other week I would go to the younger ones, the young professionals and the academy section. So that would be, and I would arrive sort of 12, half 12 and leave half 2, 3. But I'd also, Finch Farm, Belfield was easy to get round everybody. So Belfield, I would go and see the guys cleaning the boots. So some of you may remember Sean London, and sometimes I would give him a lift home if he was finishing the same time as I was finishing. And that was great because, cleaning boots is not hugely exciting. So to have someone to chat away to about life and the latest film or whatever. Finch Farm is much, much bigger. So, and there'll be people who I don't always see every week, far from it. But
is it quite a liberated role that you have in terms of, not to say the freedom of the place, of course, but you're able to be welcomed into each area and
all the way through. The club have been very good to me. I think you build up trust, don't you? So I'm not regularly on social media or but as you build up trust, and yes, they have trusted me to go wherever. Yeah.
That's really nice to hear. Your role requires you to have such kind of intimate conversations with players and of course staff alike. I am conscious that I can't pry too deeply, of course, into asking stories about individuals. But with respect, it must give you such a sense of pride to be in such close connection with the individuals that are so often, I don't know, for want of a better word, individuals who are so often worshipped by the public. It must be very proud, a proud moment for you to be able to do that.
Yeah, my perspective is that the person on the gate is no less or more important than the £50 million player. Each person is equally important. But you're right. there is a pressure on some of these guys. We all, have work to do, whether it's paid or unpaid. But not many of us have it's in the Monday papers, the Tuesday papers, the Wednesday papers. It's on social media. It's so that is a pressure. And the other thing I found interesting is sometimes my perspective is elite players. In fact, most of us have two lives. So an elite player has the life when he or she is playing, and then they have the life when the playing career is over.
Yeah, of course.
And my concern is for both lives. I want them to be as successful as possible and to give it their absolute all in their playing career, because God wants us to, whatever we're doing, to give 100% for ourselves, but also for teammates and family and those around and supporters. But I also want them to be successful in life number two. When the playing career has finished. And that's a wider picture, isn't it? Which is why I will never talk about that back pass that went wrong or that goal that was missed. I will talk about family or life or the latest film that's come out or the new issue in the papers or those sorts of things, and about faith and about what matters in life. And yes, listening is obviously a key thing. So, if there are issues with a child or a grandmother or, those sorts of things.
Again, please don't feel any pressure to answer any particular questions that I might ask you, that I might be too forward in asking. But I'd love to know if there are any stories that you could share with us kind of from behind that curtain at Everton, and we so often see our favourite players kind of pointing at the sky in celebration, or kissing the turf, or revealing a God is Great vest. Perhaps that was always my personal favourite. I loved Stephen Pienaar. But are there any individuals or moments from your Everton tenure that have really stood out for you, for good or bad reasons?
Lots of people have faith. I think my view is that everybody has a faith in the sense of a worldview. So, personally for me, as a teenager, my worldview was there isn't a God. I haven't seen God or heard God, so I'm just going to, crack on and try and get the most out of life and be a good human being. Now, that's a worldview, and in a sense it is a faith, isn't it? And as I say, I moved to the Christian faith because I thought actually the Christian faith makes more sense that there is a God. Why does my eldest child go as a little toddler? It's not fair. Where does that longing of justice and love and the joy of football and the beauty of football, not to mention this amazing universe, and in particular people down the ages who've had a religious faith and believe there is a God. And so that's how I came to that position. But everyone has got a view of life. So, and people have questions, don't they? Yeah. When a disaster happens and suffering happens, then people have questions.
I guess I'm kind of curious as well in terms of the of course you're of the Christian faith, and of course there's so many players now, international players coming from all over the world. We have multiple. We've got 2 Senegalese stars in the club, both Muslim ones. Does your role extend to them as well? And it's very much a humanist kind of across the board. You'll speak.
Yeah,
to
I'm there for every person. Yeah. So every person who I might come across, I'm there to be a chaplain to them, whatever their belief and faith. I think I'm kind of asking in the sense that it's not like you have the role for the Christian players, and then there's maybe a rabbi for the Jewish players, and maybe an imam for the... No, but I could always signpost if there was someone who wanted help in that way. So, I go to an interfaith group in the city, so I know mosques and imams, and I know the synagogue. And
you're a good roadmap kind of thing, pointing people
absolutely.
in the right direction.
Yeah.
It's good to hear. It's good to
and part of being a Christian is having a real respect for others.
Yeah.
So
it's good to know, especially considering, as you say, in terms of the how far football's come since the 80s, and nowadays how players are on such a high profile. Many of them, I suppose, can't go to church on a Sunday, or maybe they can, but I'd have thought that, the press following you, getting mobbed by people, it's good to know that there is somebody there, unseen by many, to make sure that side of things is covered. And you mentioned the significance of listening there, which I think is a very important part of what you do. Which kind of brings me on to something we mentioned earlier, the significance of today as a fixture, and what Everton are doing out on the Fan Plaza with the introduction of the club's first talking bench, which has been put in the name of in memory of Gary Speed. Yeah. I suppose. Again, I'm really conscious of asking the wrong kind of questions, but did you ever meet Gary? Is he someone? Yeah. Did you have any stories about him? What was he like as a man, and why is this such a poignant thing to do?
Yeah, it's brilliant that the club are doing that, and that there is this bench, because a lot of Evertonians will have loved Gary, and like me were absolutely shocked to bits when they heard of his death. I think at Belfield, he was seen as a really nice guy, a really keen professional, who really wanted to do things right, and he was always great with me, and I had great respect for him. But you look back and you think, underneath, what was he wrestling with? And in one sense, I feel a regret that I wasn't able, or he wasn't able, or whatever, to talk it out. And that's the point of the bench, isn't it? The point of the bench is to say, when you do have really difficult issues and feelings, there is help available.
Absolutely. I think what I found really nice about learning about that bench in particular was that there are people around it that will keep an eye out, and there'll be people there to come and sit with you and have that conversation.
And the club, Everton in the community, the people's place, does tremendous work. Fantastic.
Yeah, of course it has. A lot of the charities, the club charities, have been behind it, and I just thought it was worth asking you there about Gary Speed, because I've not met many people who knew him personally, or at least have met him personally, and of course, such a significant role that you've had yourself in relation to that. I thought it was nice to hear someone speak highly of him, who's met him in person. Thank you for that. It's a difficult topic to kind of move on from swiftly or to talk about at all, but it's a topic I wish I could give far more time, really. But one of the other significant contributions that you've made recently, and one thing we were going to talk about today, was your contributions to this match day is, of course, your story in this week's match day programme. A name who you've already mentioned a couple of times, the Reverend Ben Swift Chambers.
Yes, yep.
Now, on our very first episode on the couch, actually, I had Ken Rogers here, and he mentioned Ben Swift Chambers as it was the first grave restoration that the Heritage Society did back up at our founding in 2008. And Ken used the words, I think he said, if you don't know that name, lock it in your mind, because he is just so incredibly important to the history of Everton, and of course, therefore, to Merseyside and to Liverpool FC as well. So could you tell us why, for those who don't know, those who haven't locked it in their mind?
Yes.
Let's get that amended.
Yeah, the Reverend Ben Swift Chambers was born in 1845 in Yorkshire, near Huddersfield, and then grew up in Shepley and was involved with the Methodist Church there. And he had 2 brothers and 8 sisters, I think, so quite a big family. He was an engraver, but he was good at teaching in the Sunday school, so he thought maybe the Methodist ministry. So he became a Methodist minister, and in 1877 he came to St Domingo's Church in Everton.
I've heard of it.
As the Methodist minister. He loved his cricket, so he started a cricket team. And then in 1878, a famous date on our badge, he started St Domingo's Football Club. So he is the founder of St Domingo's Football Club, which a year later became Everton Football Club, because they were doing rather well and they were recruiting other players from other churches. So they thought, can we really call ourselves St Domingo's? So in the Queen's Head pub off Village Street in Everton, they had a meeting and decided, let's change the name to Everton. So we owe it to Ben Swift Chambers, the Methodist minister at St Domingo's, that this club is here today.
Exactly.
And he was in Everton 1877 to 1882, and then he went away and then came back again because he obviously loved Everton from 1890 to 1894. So he was around when there was the ground move from Anfield to Goodison Park, and Liverpool Football Club happened. So in that sense, he set the ball rolling for both Everton and Liverpool, because Liverpool, as we know, came out of Everton.
Absolutely. It's very much the absolute birthplace of the club, isn't it? The very first man involved, really, to set up the cricket team that became the football team, and I think what one little additional part of the ground movement, the split, I should say, which I thought was a nice part of the story, is that I believe George Marn, who was part of the Everton committee going against John Holding and wanting to build Goodison Park, he was the organist, I believe. So he was the organist in St Domingo's. So while we don't necessarily know, we don't actually have words from Chambers himself on the ground move and the split, but you could only assume, like, if he's in the same church and he must have.
They were good mates. Yeah.
Exactly, they must have had correspondence.
So Ben Chambers and George Marn would have known each other really well. Ben Chambers recruited George to be the organist. Right. George Marn was a busy accountant with lots of other things on, so he only did it for a little while. But yeah, they would have been good mates. And I'd like to think that in the split in 1892, that okay, there was some, issues there. But when John Holding died, and he actually died in 1901, soon after Ben Chambers died.
All right.
Ben Chambers died, he was only 56. But at John Holding's funeral, his coffin was carried by 3 Liverpool players and by 3 Everton players.
Really?
So there was,
There was still a mutual respect at
yeah,
least. In terms,
and there's this lovely book by Peter Lupson called Across the Park, which will give you all those stories.
Absolutely.
And I think it's behind me as well. So
it is. Do you know what? I feel like you've read my notes, because that was literally the next sentence I was going to read. It really is fitting that we acknowledge Peter Lupson's work, extensive research and storytelling on this topic. Peter Lupson was the vice chair of Everton Heritage Society at the very beginning in 2008, and it's because of him. He was the one who found Chambers' grave.
That's right.
In the west, in Huddersfield. You said it's in Huddersfield.
Yeah, near Huddersfield, Shepley, and he found it in 2007, and he found it was sadly overgrown. So he consulted. He did find a member of the family. They were more than happy, and the church was more than happy. So he came to the 2 clubs. He went to Bill Kenwright at Everton and Rick Parry at Liverpool and said, look, the founder of Everton, out of which came Liverpool, his grave could be redone up. And both clubs put in money, and we had a rededication in 2008 with Graham Sharp there from Everton, Brian Hall there from Liverpool, 2 academy players from Everton and 2 academy players from Liverpool. The chaplain at Liverpool, Bill Bygroves, and myself, Sir Philip Carter from Everton, and Rick Parry from Liverpool, plus some people from Shepley, some of whom were thrilled that they didn't realise that in their churchyard was the grave of the person who started Everton Football Club, out of which came Liverpool. And that lovely inscription was put on it: the Reverend Ben Swift Chambers, the man who set the ball rolling for the birth of Everton and Liverpool football clubs. And it's lovely, and you'll find it in this book. And Peter Lupson has also written another book called Thank God for Football. We're not the only club which had a minister founding us. There's a lovely story. He's got a great name, Tiverton Preedy, who founded Barnsley. So Barnsley started as Barnsley St Peter's. Tiverton Preedy played for them, was secretary to them, raised money for them, found a ground for them, and then he left to go to Islington in London, which we think of now as quite posh, but then it was quite a poor area. And when Barnsley won the FA Cup in 1912, they presented the match ball to Tiverton Preedy. So in the vicarage study in Islington, he would have the match ball from the 1912 FA Cup final. And again, like Ben Swift Chambers, he seems to have been a really sound guy. And he kept in touch. He before every cup game, he'd send them a telegram, as you did in those days, wishing them all the best. And he seems a really good guy. And Ben Swift Chambers seems to have been a really sound guy, because after he died, there was some lovely stuff said about him. It said he had a winning personality, eager to serve, keen to do good, delighting in the success of his friends. That's a good quality, isn't it? One of the best husbands and a model father. And it amused me that when he was at St Domingo's, in 1878 he had his eldest girl, in 1879 he had his next girl, and in 1881 he had his third girl. So his wife Elizabeth should also be given lots of respect. And then I think he had another daughter later.
Brilliant.
But
it's lovely to hear. Do you remember where those quotes came from?
They came from I think the Methodist recorder after his death, paying tribute to him.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's always nice to hear that the heroes and icons and legends are good people.
He seems to have been a really
Yeah.
sound guy, and he was a good preacher apparently.
Yeah.
And he hated sectarianism, so he wanted churches to work together. And again, as a chaplain, I'm keen. We talked about interfaith, that we work together like that.
Yeah, for sure, and interfaith and inter teams as well. I mean, part of the reason why I started on that in terms of who turned up at the graveside of Ben Swift Chambers, representatives from both clubs, as you say, helping to fund the rededication, the new grave site. Of course, you mentioned it all the way back then, and then again in the modern day. Still, the two clubs respecting him, as should be. So I have a few final questions. If there's nothing else we have on Ben Swift Chambers, I just wanted to ask you how, considering you've served Everton as a community for so long, how have you seen the area change, and how has Everton as a whole, as a community, grown or not grown, I don't know, in your opinion, over the last 40 or so years?
I mean, I love my time in Everton and met some fabulous people. I mean, we had a number of tough campaigns, and it hasn't always been easy. And I remember when the heroin explosion came in the 1980s, that was pretty tough, and we saw some pretty sad things through that. But I love the fact that the churches worked together, and they didn't just work together with church people, they worked with the community. So West End Community Council was really important. The Shewsy has been, I mean, I've loved the Shewsy, and that Shewsy is still going strong.
I believe so, yes. A youth club now? Was it always a youth club? It was founded in 1903, so, and it's a youth and community centre now, and does a great job with loads of kids. So, and the Shewsy, for those who don't know, is more or less in the shadow of Prince Rupert's Tower, isn't it? It's on Netherfield Road.
It's just off Netherfield Road,
right in the heart of
on Langgrove Street, right next to St Pete. Well, it's in the same building as St Peter's Church.
Yeah.
So, and I love my time there. So, but it hasn't always been easy, and I mean, we can get onto politics, and we sometimes get onto politics at Finch Farm. There are issues there, obviously, about things could be a lot better. So, and again, thinking of football, I mean, we all know that football has had its share of injustices, and obviously top of that list is Hillsborough, and I just thought it was wonderful that Everton and Liverpool really came together over that. I love it that the first scarf on the Shankly Gates was a blue scarf. And again, Peter Lupton in his book talks a lot about that. And I don't want to upset too many Evertonians, but I do want both teams in the city to do well, because I think it's good for the city. And as a Christian, there's a lovely verse in Jeremiah which says, seek the prosperity of the city where you are, and that's talking about Babylon. Now, so it's quite a tough message from Jeremiah to give, but I think as Christians we do want our city as a whole not to prosper in necessarily money terms, but prosper in well-being terms, in terms of people being treated well. And that's an issue, obviously, for football as well as for society.
Yeah, I think it's a very fitting thing to say, while largely disagreeing with you. I think, no disrespect, but I hope they're all miserable. No, I'm joking, of course. But I want to get your take on this kind of, particularly on the fabled kind of fusion between football and religion. Now, the way I see it, in fact, I did an interview with Claire Wheeler, the midfielder for Everton Women, a couple of weeks ago, Australian international player, and she said that she really likens football to religion. And she's put it really succinctly in the sense that she just said, well, we all go to the same church every Sunday. We all sing as a choir, singing the same songs. We all worship the same icons. I'm curious to know if you feel any sort of, whether that link is in any way disrespectful, or is it something that should be celebrated? Particularly, I mean, go to the extreme examples of the likes of Maradona, who is basically a god to some. What's your take on that, and maybe link that in with Everton and Goodison Park, as I know you have before? My line is, football is like a religion, because you can call Hill Dickinson a cathedral, and you can go and worship. Worship just means give worth. So I hope today that the crowd at Hill Dickinson will be giving worth to Tieno Barry as he scores his goal, or to Jack Grealish as he holds on the ball and creates 5 assists. So
no
prediction.
No,
the prediction.
no problem. No problem with Hill Dickinson, Goodison Park being places of worship, and there's teamwork and there's identity. You're an Evertonian or whatever. So it's like a religion, but it's not actually a religion because it doesn't answer the ultimate questions. Is there a God or is there not a God? What happens when we die? What is the real purpose of life if there is a God? And those big ultimate questions. So it's the Everton Heritage Society kindly put on their website an article I did called "Is Goodison Park a place of worship? Is football a religion?" And it was yes and no.
Yes and no. There you
go. But I think there are lovely links. Yes. I mean, Jesus used parables, and I reckon if he was around today, there are plenty of parables from football. Teamwork is a wonderful thing, isn't it? And, your best players, it's not about me, it's about we, isn't it? They don't just think of playing well themselves, they want their other players to play well. Now, that's a great truth for life, isn't it? You don't just want to do the best for yourself, but do it best for your friends, your family, your community, your city, your world. So there are lots of good messages in football, and that's the two lives thing. That for a top player, they give it their absolute best for themselves, their teammates, and they can also take principles from that into life number two. Look out for others and try and help them prosper as well as yourself. And training, perseverance, good for Evertonians. Perseverance.
Have you ever used any of this stuff? Any football-related kind of stuff within your work within the church, maybe in your sermons and things?
Yep. Every now and then I do a thing on sport and faith, looking at those sort of links. And if a good preacher will use illustrations, so sometimes they will come from football or sport or the latest soap or whatever.
Yeah, I was going to say there's one thing that I wish we had more time to sit and chat about, which is you're interested in film and television and some of the articles you've written, particularly on the things that have been filmed here in Liverpool recently. But since we don't have the time for that, this is your chance, I suppose, to give us an idea of where people can read more of your work, because like your article on Goodison, that can be found on the Everton Heritage Society. EFCHeritageSociety.com. But you have your own site as well, I believe.
There's a website called Seen and Unseen, and it's a bit of a mixture, like all these sites, but it's got loads of articles on it. And if you go Seen and Unseen Henry Corbett, you'll find the Goodison Park one. You'll find a review of Duncan Ferguson's autobiography, which I thought was wonderfully honest about mistakes he'd made, and you'll find something about what happens if we don't always win. If you like cricket, I saw Jemima Rodriguez make 127 not out against the normal all-conquering Australian cricketers, and so I did a thing on that. She is a woman cricketer in India, which is on the up.
I see.
And Sarah Mullally becoming Archbishop-elect of the Church of England. So that was a good... so there's a few articles there.
All right. Seen and Unseen Henry Corbett.
Seen and Unseen Henry Corbett.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I'll put plenty of the links, as I always say, when we post things on YouTube, I'll put links to stuff in the description below, so if anyone's looking for or not wanting to remember addresses and things, click on the links in the comments and in the descriptions below the video, and I'll put our St Luke's video in there as well. That's probably a poignant one for Evertonians. I think that was a really an honour for me to be involved in. I really enjoyed making that with you. So, I can't thank you enough for coming in and giving us your time. As I say, especially since we're not necessarily going to the match.
Do you want a prediction?
You've just said Tierno Barry and 5 assists for Grealish, so how many are we scoring?
Well, Tony Grant, who people will know, I heard him predict that Newcastle would win 2-0 because of their outstanding midfield. So I'll let Tony get 2 goals for Newcastle, and I reckon it'll be 3-2.
3-2.
3-2 to the Toffees. But I'm not great at predictions. I used to be a season ticket holder with 2 of my kids, and I remember going up to a game against Southampton and saying, who knows which way this is going to go, and I think it was 7-1.
Close. Well, I'm going to end this by saying if this game finishes 3-2, There is a God.
There are better reasons than that.
Oh dear, no disrespect at all. I hope you're right. So, thank you very much, Henry. I really appreciate it, and until next time, thank you very much.
Cheers, Lewis.
Cheers. Thanks for watching this week, everybody. Just a little bit of news to bring you in the upcoming programme for spring. We have some heritage social nights that'll be at the Denby Castle. We've got some very special guests lined up for that one as well, in a nice intimate location. So True Blues, come along and enjoy those events. Everybody keep an eye out for any news and tickets about that via our social media pages. All you need to do is search Everton Heritage on any social media platforms. For those further afield who can't make it to those Merseyside events, I will be filming those occasions, and they will be going online. So make sure you're following us to get access to those in the new year. A reminder to like and subscribe here on our YouTube channel. There are 7 episodes already done before this one. They are evergreen, so you can go back and watch those retrospectively. They will last forever, hopefully, so you can get a good view of those. The Everton Heritage YouTube page as well has a ton of films and documentaries on there to keep you entertained over this festive period, including the story of St Luke's Church, which is hosted by our guest today, Henry. You can find that in the description below, of course, and there will be another new film out this month as well. We won't be recording before the Nottingham Forest game, so that means that next time we'll be around will be before Arsenal. The film will be out shortly afterwards during that week, which means that we won't see you before Christmas, so we hope everybody has a really lovely Christmas period and a happy new year too. As I say, there's plenty of things that you can go back and watch retrospectively, so be sure to check those out. Unfortunately today Everton fell to a miserable 4-1 defeat to Newcastle, so Henry's prediction of 3-2 didn't quite come true. But we've got 2 games coming thick and fast, so who knows, maybe a 1-0 away win against Bournemouth and then a 3-0 at home to Forest to round the week off wouldn't be bad, would it? So Merry Christmas, guys. See you soon.